Wonderful. Hello, everyone. So excited today to have Amy with us. Amy came through the school yoga program recently, a few months ago. And why I want to share Amy's story in particular, because I remember, Amy, the first time we all got together on Zoom and we were all sharing our stories. When you shared yours in particular, all of us had like the jaw-dropping moment. Like, we cannot believe your situation. So I really just want to share the story with everyone to see what's possible in a school, and really also acknowledge the administrators, your school community for taking this on. So let's start a little bit about your background. Tell us about where you come from, what your background is, what your passion is, and then we'll roll into what this exciting program that you've created.
Sure. Thank you, Giselle. I am thankful that I even found this program. But I actually have a retail background. I have a merchandising degree from university. And it wasn't until several years ago that I had a desire to teach yoga and learn more about the yoga philosophy. So I had always said one day, and couldn't find the perfect program that fit my budget, one, and crazy schedule too. So January 2020, I found a yoga program where I could earn my certification. And then the world shut down and was furloughed from my retail career and was able to pursue my yoga dream. So all through furlough, I think until September 2020, I worked on my yoga certification. And during that time, a high school classmate of mine, reached out and said, "Hey, I saw that you were teaching yoga. Would you be interested in coming to our karate facility and teaching yoga to these kids as an end of summer kind of break from our everyday routine?"
Right.
I freaked out because I'd never taught a yoga class to children before, but it happened and it worked beautifully. Didn't have a clue what I was doing, but had enough knowledge. When she sent me the pictures back of the photos that she took during our session, these children, their faces and my faces, you could see the passion that I had and didn't even really know that I did. So I said, okay, now I need to go get my yoga for children certification. And fall into winter 21, I got my children's yoga certification and didn't know where it was going to take me, had no idea, but I knew there was a need some way, somehow. I then posted this past May, just a personal reflection about the tragedy that happened in Texas. Mm-hmm. And a quote that I posted is the one that you have in the Kids Yoga Story program, that if we could teach every 8-year-old meditation, that we have the ability to eliminate violence in that whole generation. And so I posted that quote. A friend saw it and she showed it to her administrator, a teacher friend. And the administrator said, "I don't know this girl, but she is who we need." So, yeah. So my friend called me and she said, "Would you just entertain the idea? This is what we want." I couldn't say no, but why not? Right.
Right.
So they had zero vision. They had no idea what they wanted. They just knew that they needed a person with a passion to make it happen.
Right.
So we went back and forth. An hour later, the parent-teacher organization presidents called and said, "This is what we have to offer. Can you make it happen?" Sure. I sure can. Again, with no vision, they just knew they needed a human.
Right.
And not just any human, but someone who could love on these kids.
Right.
So we toyed with a couple of names, what we wanted to call it. And I kept referring to my private space, which is, this is where I teach yoga in my home, very, very small, very private. But I kept referring to it as my space. So the principal of this school said, well, why don't we just call it space? And then she used each letter: social, physical, academic, cognitive, and emotional.
Oh my goodness.
And so then I became the space coach. So I guess my title is space coach, but I am their meditation or mindful meditation and breathing coach. So
Incredible.
that's how it started.
That's amazing. I mean, it just gives me the chills thinking about it. So here you are, you start the school year, right? Going back to last year when you had the conversation, the school community administrators, teachers saw a need, right?
Yes.
Saw a need in the children. Talk to us a little bit about what your program is targeting. You've talked about self-regulation, emotional regulation.
Yes.
What is it that they're seeing? Why did they see a need for this?
So this particular school, and it's probably not like no other school. I mean, it's probably exactly like every other school in the world. There is trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Even though this particular school is a very wealthy in that particular community, they have the funds, they have the ability to just bring in people and pay them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's trauma in that school. They recently had one of their own classmates was murdered. Mm. And so that, I think at that time, those children are now in middle school, but it still affected the entire school. Mm-hmm. And they felt like they needed extra counselors, extra hands to help them regulate. Mm-hmm. And they just knew that they wanted people. They didn't want more programs to come and go. They wanted someone to be there. And so I am there 5 days a week. Not for the entire school day, but the majority of the school day. Mm-hmm. And these children, whether their kitty cat passed away over the weekend or they are dealing with parents who are going through a divorce, it's as minimal as that, but can be so much bigger. And they come to me as needed. So
isn't it incredible? And I love the idea, how beautiful that came organically as space, because that's really what you're holding, right? Yeah. That makes your position unique. And I love the way you use coach too. So you're a facilitator, a guide on their journey.
Exactly.
So you're different than a school nurse or a school counselor. You've got a very unique offering that they can knock on your door, right? They knock on the door when they want to.
Exactly.
Right. It's up to them. So it's not that you're going into the classroom. It's not a push or pulling in, but they're coming to you. So you've got a volunteer experience, right? You're gaining relationships by these children knocking on your door and coming in.
Yep.
Right. So how do you get the word out about, first of all, you created the space, you got into the space in the school, right? And then you started to decorate and you use that sort of space astronaut situation.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how you decorated your room.
Sure. So I literally got on Amazon and had no idea that there was even decor that had an astronaut doing meditation. I had no idea until I started researching or searching on Amazon and found all of the space themed things that I could find. I have paper garland hanging from the ceiling in space that has each of the astronaut or each of the planets. I have banners, bunting along the walls. I have, a friend of mine donated these decals that they act as if you were looking through a rocket ship into the galaxy, and it is a visual of space. So this part of the wall is very black, very dark, but then it looks like you were looking into space, but it's very calming. Mm-hmm. I have twinkle lights over a curtain. I have stars projected on the ceiling in the space room. Right. I use essential oils and diffusers as well in there. But again, it's just very dark, very calming. And they walk in and they take their initial deep breath and they go, I already feel better.
Right. So that was probably your first job. The first day you got there, right? Is to find your space and then create the space, literally, right? Create the environment. And then once you kind of had that set up, right? How did you organize the lessons, or how did you know what kind of activity?
So
Yoga mindfulness.
there was really no, again, there was no guideline. There was really no, they knew that they just wanted space, but they didn't know what it was going to entail. Right. So I needed to figure out how I was going to figure out what was going on with these kids. So tell me what your emotions are. And I found an emoji chart that I attached to my wall, and they walk in, they show me on the emoji chart what they're feeling, what their emotion is. Mm-hmm. And from there, I say, okay, so this is what I hear you saying to me. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and take our big, deep breath. And then if you want to talk, mm-hmm. we will talk about it. Mm-hmm. I always tell them that I am the worst advisor. I'm going to give you terrible advice, but what I can do is teach you how to breathe mm-hmm. and how to meditate. Right. And if we need to move, then we are going to do some yoga poses.
Right.
The coolest thing about all of this is when I was looking up things to put in the space, I found Kids Yoga Stories, outer space yoga.
Right.
It was the very first thing that I had my administrator print for me in a large format, and it is on the wall. I since then found the calm down yoga poses that you guys created and had them print that as well. So I have both of those posters in space, and they get to choose. Do you want to do outer space yoga today, or do you just need to calm down and do those 5? Most of the time they do all 10.
Right. I love it.
So, yeah.
Right. That's amazing. Okay. So they're coming to you, and they coming individually or in small group? How do they arrive?
I prefer that they come to me individually mm-hmm. so that it gives them privacy if they need to chat.
Yeah.
But I also have better classroom management when it's less than 5 students in space. It is a very small space, but I've had a classroom come in so that I can introduce and explain a little bit better and see some of the things that they will be doing when they join me.
Right.
But again, it's mostly individual. I've had a few after lunch visitors who come in as 3s. But for the majority, it's single. They come in individually, and we build that relationship.
And how long do they usually stay for, the children? Is it just like a couple
minutes? It just depends.
Or?
If I have a couple who, actually one pretty recent one had gone to her primary care doctor, and the doctor recommended yoga poses after lunch.
Oh.
So I was like, wow, who's your doctor?
Right.
Anyway, so she comes in and she spends 8 minutes with me. We do a couple of breathing exercises, and then we do at least 5 of the poses from the posters. And then she runs on back to class. So for the majority, it's 10, 15. Some of them, if we get in there and we start getting regulated and then they outburst again, I will keep them as long as 20 minutes. I don't feel like I'm confident sending them back if they're not regulated. So I do make sure they have been regulated before I send them back.
Right. And how do you know the program's working? So, your school really took a bit of a leap of faith that this was going to work, right? They hired you, they created the space, they've given you some funding, obviously, right? You kind of had a blank slate to start from, right? To create from. How do we know it's working?
When a teacher a staff member whose child knocks on my door, asks for assistance, and then goes back to her mom and says, that's exactly what I needed. And then the teacher goes to the principal and says, she's perfect. That's how I know it's working.
That's amazing.
We do have Google form. I have a Google form that I have for evaluation, if you will, just to make sure the time, the date, the emotion, all of that is being stamped. So we know when they're seeing me the majority of the time. And then we can kind of look at the calendar and go, okay, this is what's happening this week. Are you having more students? I honestly thought that I would have 0 students the Monday after our Thanksgiving break. I was slammed.
Yeah.
Which was surprising to me.
Yes.
I'm all about the moon phases, and I understand the energy that goes along with it. And I can tell when the energy is heightened that I have more visitors.
Right. Well, you've got late nights, right? They're with their families, their friends. There's a lot going on, right? It's very dysregulating for children who have trouble regulating.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can totally see that.
Yeah. So I personally believe that it is working when I have students who go home and say, hey, mom, I went to space today. And the parent then calls the school and says, what is space? What is going on?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, my child loved it. And I don't honestly get a whole lot of feedback, but when I can see a teacher walking toward me and their shoulders relax, I can tell that something is working. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, you're ultimately having these children go back to school ready to learn.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the biggest gift.
Exactly.
Anyone, right? If they could come to you for 5 minutes,
Mhm.
take a deep breath, do some poses, whatever, have some quiet time to be able to regulate their minds, to be able to go back. I mean, that's a gift you're giving children for life, right? I can speak for my own child who has troubles regulating, and I can see if she had somewhere she could go that wasn't just the school nurse, she's got other things to do, right? Or the school counselor, they're busy, right? If she could, I mean, if this was in every school, imagine if she knew there was somewhere that she could go, she would be there every single day. That would be amazing. But, to help children, the awareness piece. So even having these children notice that they need a little extra help.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary, right? And I can imagine it's going to start building and building and building even more as more word gets out. Like, I was just in space, here's what happened or whatever. And they start telling their friends. It's extraordinary what you're doing.
It is.
Yeah.
Kind of blows my mind.
Yeah. So what's kind of the future of space? Are you able to bring what you're doing and integrate it into the classrooms as well? Are some of the teachers coming and helping to bridge that gap? Like, can you give them yoga poses? For example, the child you said about the doctor suggested yoga poses, would some of those teachers be open to maybe practicing, a few poses after recess? According to doctor's orders, or what,
Right.
How are you able to kind of see that work in the classrooms as well?
I feel like if I did offer it to the teachers, this is what I'm actually doing in space. These are what you are sending your students for.
Yeah.
If I could do that with them, I feel like it would my door would be revolving.
Yeah. Right.
Not only with the students, but with the teachers as well.
Yeah.
Now, I have noticed that this school, it's considered a trauma-informed school. So they've been reading the Help for Billy book. I noticed that there are several, not all of them, but there are several classrooms who already have little calm down corners.
Yeah.
And I think that the teachers try to utilize their own calm down corner before sending them on to space, to allow the children to at least initially try to calm down. And if it doesn't work, they send them on to me. Yeah. But I feel like if I could, which is probably in the works, it's probably going to happen in the very near future when we get back from break, teaching the teachers.
Yes.
And then going on into the classroom, hopefully giving them some information, some tools to utilize as well.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. And also what I love you saying that too, with the calm down corners. So there's some children, neurotypical children, who probably would do really well having a moment to themselves. They're naturally able to regulate, and they can just spend some individual time and then get back to it. For children like my child, who isn't yet able to self-regulate, she can come to you and get co-regulated, right? So you're providing that opportunity. I mean, they are doing that obviously with the teacher and the assistants in the classroom, but again, they're busy. There's a lot of there's a lot of children and few adults, but with you, they can come in and really co-regulate. So they've got someone else, and you, by doing that, you're giving them those skills to hopefully have it for themselves as well. So that's just, I can't get over it. It's such a gift what you're doing. and is there a thought about moving this program to modeling it with other schools in your district as well, or do they have ideas?
So, yeah. That is my goal. And I was telling my husband this earlier. I said, maybe my dream is quite lofty, but if I don't have it, then I need to, start over. or I won't know where to start because I don't know where I'm going. But so yes, my dream, my goal is to have by 2025, at least 6 or 8 of the elementary schools in our district with this exact same program. So that, and then my goal is to be the one who leads each of the space coaches.
Mhm.
And I want it to stay space. I mean, this has kind of been my thing.
Yeah.
So I want it to stay called space. But I want it to be in at least that many schools. I would love to have it in middle school as well.
Yeah.
But I know that the whole 8-year-old thing is who we need to be focusing on, and younger as well.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, those who are 8 and older have missed out already.
Right.
So I just know that it needs to be in middle and high school as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure there's some ripple effects too. Maybe there's some younger siblings that have older siblings that they can share with, right? Now, thinking back, Amy, so it's been a few months since you've been building this program. Has there been a story? Has there been a moment with a child that you were just like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is where I'm meant to be. I'd love to hear any stories that you have.
Gosh, if I had to figure out just one, that makes it a little bit difficult. But we did recently have a book fair. I don't know if you guys have those, where Scholastic comes in and they set up all the books in the library. Well, we had a kindergartner who was not understanding that those books weren't for checkout.
Yeah.
And so he thought that he got to take those books home. And the librarian and her assistant had to be the bearer of bad news. Sorry, bud, these stay here. So he literally had a mental breakdown in the library, and they did everything they could. They have a little cube that has the breathing books and the calm down books in this cube. Well, I got a text message school-wide, and they were like, we need you, come help us.
Yeah.
So I looked the little fella in the eyes and I said, why don't you come to space with me? I want you to first know that you are not in trouble, but I think we just need to calm down together. Yeah. So much to his chagrin, because he did not want to leave without those books, we went to space and we regulated. Well, it took a little bit, but once we did, he was able to hug me and thank me, go to the librarian and her assistant, hug them and thank them. And that's how I knew I was in it first. Well, then we just had our holiday program this past Friday, and he saw me and he came up to me and he just wanted to sit in my lap and be with me. So that's how I know co-
regulation, right? He probably knew that in a program, he's in it was school wide.
Very stimulated.
Very stimulating. He probably knew that you're a safe place. Safe space, right? He could sit with you and feel your energy, right? And it could help him co-regulate to get through that experience. Right.
Yes. That's how I know it's working.
Yeah. That's incredible. That's incredible.
Not to mention all of the ones who see me, in passing, and they're like, Coach Amy, and they know that I am there as a safe place.
Right.
And they can come and some of them, they just see me in the hallway and you can tell that their shoulders come down after seeing me. It's like that energy, I guess. They know that they take a deep breath and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. Incredible. Oh my goodness. So if someone were to start a program like this, what would you suggest is like the props or resources, or what are some things that you absolutely have to have? What are your biggest recommendations? So
when I was actually finishing my children's yoga certification, I called my instructor and I said, what do I need? Give me 5 things.
Yes.
And he recommended definitely the Hoberman sphere.
Yes.
The breathing ball.
Yeah.
And then he said, definitely you're going to need those star projector lights for the ceiling. It just creates that whole space. Yeah. I absolutely love the yoga deck, all of the kids yoga store, those decks, and all of the resources that you have to offer. I love them all. I just wish I had enough minutes in the day to read every single one of them, because I know that each one of them would be so perfectly beneficial. I also created from a Pinterest idea is the calm down glitter jars.
Awesome.
The kids love these. And you can use snow globes, whatever, but the glitter jars are great. And a couple of yoga mats. I've heard people say you need to buy rolls and rolls of yoga mats, but I literally have 3 in space. I have 3 yoga mats in space. My own personal one, and then a couple others for the kids to get on. So that's really what we use the most of. I have one student who loves the yoga deck. Every time she comes to see me, she said, "Can we pick a card?" And so that's been very beneficial.
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. So what would you say to somebody who's maybe an administrator or a teacher who's thinking, or parent even, who's maybe thinking of starting something like this and is feeling like, oh, it seems too hard, or I'm a little stuck, or what are some kind of words of encouragement? What would you say?
Yeah, definitely go through the kids' story program, the yoga program. Definitely do that, because that is what helped me kind of push me over the edge, to give me the confidence, knowing that you have the tools, just go use each one of them. And take the leap of faith, jump, because there are kids, there's some child out there who needs you.
Right. Well, it could make a difference. It absolutely could make a huge difference in the lives of these children. You'll never know how the things were planted, that years from now they'll remember the work they did in space, right? That
there's a story, may have heard it. It's called the Starfish Story, and it's a little girl on the beach, and she's picking up starfish, and she's throwing each one in one by one, and there's thousands on the beach. And this old man says, "You're not going to save them all." And she holds up one and she says, "But I'm making a difference for this one." And I hold that story very close to my heart, because I feel like even if it was just that one little fella from the book fair, I made a difference in his life, and he won't forget it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Amazing. Now, do you have a website or anything, Amy? Can we find it online?
I just have my Instagram, Wild Child Yoga, and it's spelled differently. So I'll have to, send that to you and type it in so that people can see it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for taking your time, and enjoy your holidays. And
thank you.
So you can be well rested to get back there.
Thank you for inviting me to this call. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Amy. Appreciate it.
Yeah.